Okay.
Okay. I have my slides and I have my notes.
Perfect. Okay, we're recording now. Thanks very much, Sisko, for joining us for this bonus additional session that you're offering the students. And you're going to talk about what you're looking for in a thesis, what makes a good thesis, and a little bit about thesis structure. And you have slides for this, and I'm not going to hold you up too long, so I'm going to say over to you, Sisko.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And as I told you, I'd like to address the students directly. So I'm going to talk to you like you, even though only Chris is here. I've also got my notes. I want to focus on the things that as a supervisor and a second reviewer of the thesis reports, I usually find some parts of the whole process difficult. So difficult for the students. So that's why I'm only focusing on those points. And I watched, by the way, the interview with Mark with great interest, and there were a couple of things that are directly connected to the thesis report as well. For example, at the end, when Mark was talking about why are you doing this? And all the points he made were very good. You should be interested in your topic. But why we are doing this at the University of Applied Sciences is I have copied straight from the thesis guide at TAMK. Thesis topics are usually based on working life needs. So it's not about you as a student, what you are really interested in this world, but basically the first task is to identify a need for development, and preferably in your own workplace. And that's why you have like the requirement to have worked for 3 years before you apply for the master's degree. So it's very practical. And then I don't remember if you talked about the topic, but your report guide goes on to say the topic is good when you find it interesting, it answers practical needs, is relevant to the professional field and its potential development. So very, very like practical development project. My comment to add to that is that remember that this is first and foremost a graduation project. So you showed your learning and your maturity through this thesis process, and the topic would be good if you could use the theories that you've studied in the MEL program, so that in one of the courses or many courses, you have studied theories, and if you can think of a topic that you can support with these theories that you already know, that would make your work much easier, not having to start studying a lot of new theories. So that's a practical point as well. Okay, then assessment, a quote from the report guide again. You should become familiar with the assessment criteria in advance in order to take them into account from the very beginning. And that's why we are now going to look at the assessment criteria quickly. I'm going to share the screen. Chris, do you have something to ask at this point?
I'm trying not to come in and interrupt you, so I'll stay out of it. I don't.
Please
There was
just
something
stop
I was
me.
gonna. Yeah, what was it? I don't remember now. But yeah, okay, I will jump in and ask if something comes to my mind.
Okay, so we are going to look at these assessment criteria. Your thesis report will be assessed on these 4 things. Lots of criteria descriptions, but the kind of the criteria are the theoretical starting point, your theoretical framework and use of references is the first one that is going to be graded. Methods, implementation, thesis process, and so forth, and results, conclusions, output and discussion, and thesis presentation and written report. These are the things that we need to grade. And there's a lot of, I'm not really very happy with these criteria descriptions. They could be much better, but I'm going to pick some of them, which I find bear more weight than some of the others. And the theoretical framework is one of them. There's a lot of text here, and usually it's not difficult for students to define the key concepts and to show that they have acquainted with the key references. But this one is something that not everybody does. Reference information is analyzed and synthesis made systematically and critically, creating new information. This is excellent, but also if you want to get a good grade and not excellent, then still your reference information should be analyzed and synthesis made systematically and critically. Many students forget to make any synthesis or look at the theoretical framework critically. I'm going to show you some examples of theses where these have been done. Methods. What it says here, selection, use, and application of research and development methods are appropriate, justified, and reproducible based on the description. So this is where you need to explain in detail what you did and why you did it. And this justification is very often that students forget. They might, for example, say, this is a case study and so forth, this is my case. Not talking about any other possibilities, that any other methods they could have used and why they didn't select these methods. So maybe I'll say a few more words about this in connection with my slides. Then we have a point here, results. This is all about methods. The results, the author considers the thesis results widely in relation to the framework, operationalization of the phenomenon, and earlier research. Very often forgotten altogether. So when you're discussing your results, and even in the methodology section where you are discussing your analysis, if you're using the concepts from your theoretical framework, you need to make it explicit and refer to the theory. And the last chance for you to do this is in a discussion. But if this is missing altogether, that you discuss your analysis and your results and write your discussion section only about your results without comparing your results to the prior research, for example, then what Sari, for example, tells us that you can't get over grade 3 if these references are totally forgotten. So these are the important parts to remember. And the last bit is about critically discussing your own thesis process, seeing the strengths and weaknesses and not making the weaknesses too bad, but explaining why these limitations were considered. Okay, this is what I wanted to share at this point. Any questions, Chris?
I don't have any questions thus far. I think this is really useful that you're pointing out some of the specifics, because I think when students look at the evaluation criteria, it's too much. Yeah. So there's some things which is good to pay attention to, which, as you say, are often the sort of the areas where students are sort of slightly failing at. Yeah.
And because there's too much text, the important parts don't sort of jump out.
Exactly.
I have my notes that I can share with you where I have these points picked out of the assessment criteria.
Great.
Now to my slides. Let me share you these and try to make them into the presentation mode. No. Oh, no, I don't want this. I don't want it like this. Why did you... What, you can see this now.
We can see that now if you on the, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I'm going to, how can I take it away? Stupid. I'm going to keep it like this. Better. This is better. You can see this.
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay, so first the structure. These are boring headings. You can have more informative headings for your chapters, as long as you remember that this content, that the report should have this content, and the introduction and discussion are in yellow because they should make a match. What you promise to do in the introduction, give your research questions and the purpose of your research, you should then point out that you have done in the discussion. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a subchapter research questions answered for the reader, so that the reader can actually not have to remember what were the research questions and have she or he answered these questions, but to really point out that these were the research questions and this is my answer based on the theory and the results. And anything else here? Under discussion, there's another slide about what that should include. Ethical concerns could be part of the methodology or the results or the discussion. And they, as I said, these are the kind of explicit headings. You can use these, but you can find more informative ones. I will say this now that I remember, that the whole idea of writing this report is to imagine that you take the reader by the hand and lead them through your thesis process and the whole research. Don't think that the reader will remember something that you mentioned in the introduction. You always have to explicitly state what you want the reader remember or understand. Okay, then we have the introduction, what it should contain. The topic, what is the topic of your research? Why is it important? Why are you doing it? What do you want to accomplish? What did you do? How did you do it briefly? Because you have a methodology chapter to discuss this in more detail. And what are the key concepts used from your theory? And maybe then it's a nice touch to have an overview of the structure for the reader. Like first, the theoretical framework will give you a basis and blah, blah, blah. And then we have the topic. We already discussed this a bit. You want to give some background to your topic, why this is important, but don't write many pages about the background before you say what is the purpose of your research. So this topic could be right at the beginning, like maybe even very seldom, but students do this. But I like it when the student says at the beginning, this thesis or this research is investigating this and that, and then start telling about the background. But it can be first, the background can be first, as long as it's not too long, because it could then be later on a sub-chapter inside the introduction. So what does the reader need to know to understand the dissertation? What is being developed? What is the context? Why is it important? This is still about the introduction. To have identified the development need and what is wrong with the existing situation, and how does your work fit into previous research on this topic and will improve this situation. And here you can also already reference to the main research and researchers in the area. your niche means that you find, when you do your literature review about prior research, you find a gap there that has not been studied yet, and this is your place to do this and add knowledge about this phenomenon. But you know that almost everything has been researched already. Theoretical framework. This is something that gives you the basis for your whole thesis. It guides your selection of the methods and in creating your data collection instrument. For example, if you're going to have a questionnaire sent out, then the questionnaire items should be operationalized from the theory. You should, and even when you discuss your questionnaire items, you could refer back to the theory, saying that this concept is from this theory, and these 5 questions probe answers to this research question, and so forth, linking it to the theory as much as you can. Also, the theoretical framework will guide your analysis of your data and the interpretation of your data, and also your discussion of the results. So it really is the basis for everything you do. So remember to carry it through your report. And also, it's a good idea if, when you are discussing the theoretical framework, for example, you have a leadership theory, and there might be many leadership theories that you want to refer to, and then you sort of take the one that you feel fits best to your research. Then even in this theoretical chapter, to make the connection to your research, the best reports will show through the whole theoretical framework chapter how this theory applies to their case and how they are going to use this. And I will say it at this point again, now that I remember, that you can write in the first person singular. You don't have to become very, very formal and academic, but you can say that my research is this, and that's why I am doing this. Select and combine relevant theories, but don't explain all the theories that there are out in the world, but only find the relevant ones, or one relevant one to focus on. Establish the definitions that best fit your research, and say, in this research, the concept is understood as, if, for example, if you find lots of definitions for a certain concept, then say how you understand this concept in this research. Show existing knowledge as a basis for your rationale, and use theoretical framework as a basis for selecting methods, interpretation, and understanding your data. I said that already. Literature review is not the same as theoretical framework. As I was explaining, theoretical framework is usually a theory, many theories about leadership, for example, and concepts that we need to understand. Literature review is your review of prior research on a similar topic or the phenomenon that you are studying. Yeah, I think it helps you if you think about them separately, even if you're going to discuss them in the same chapter, or maybe as different sub-chapters. But if you think about, like, this is, I'm writing my theory, and now I'm going to search for prior research, what kind of studies have been done on this topic or similar topic. And you can even start with a literature review so that you can see what theories the other researchers have used and get good ideas. So what has been done already: provide evidence that you are familiar with previous research on the topic. What is relevant to your research now at the time of ChatGPTs and other AI applications? It's easy to ask for literature on a certain topic, and one can see when reading it that, well, masses of literature references to all kinds of studies. But again, it's your job to find relevant literature, relevant studies to your own research, and not just everything that you can find. And not just list different studies, but summarize, and not just like summarizing, because the ChatGPT does that. It finds research articles and gives you summaries. But listing these summaries as part of your report is not going to be a good thing, because you should, what they say is to make your sources discuss. It means that you critically evaluate these studies that you found and compare their results. And then that's the sources discussing. Some of them find some positive results, and there's another study that contradicts that altogether. And then if you can find a gap for your research, or just where you want to focus on. Methodology. Let me check my notes, what I wanted to say about this. Yes, okay, very important, the justifications. Always explain why you did what you did, based on your theory and methodology literature. Read methodology literature so that you understand, for example, the difference between quantitative research and qualitative research. And if you are using mixed approach, then you need to explain the basic sort of characteristics of quantitative research, where it is useful, what kind of results can you get with that approach, and likewise about qualitative approach. And then if you use the mixed approach, then explain which parts of this both approaches will support your research best. In a good report, the reader would see that this author really understands different methodologies, and therefore has been able to pick the methods that best fit these research questions, and so forth. So the kind of discussion would be important, but very often even a good report explains the method you have chosen really well. So looking at the weaknesses of the method and looking at the strengths, and then explaining why it still is the best thing to do here. But even better if you can show that you understand other methods as well. Okay. Next, again, we talk about the link to your theoretical frame of reference. I already talked about the justification, operationalization of the theoretical concepts in your questionnaire. I wrote in my notes here that show examples of your data analysis. For example, coding. When you are, let me quickly check if I have a different slide here. Yeah, results. Okay. When you have the chapter for data collection and data analysis, very often students write that I did content analysis, and these are the steps that content analysis includes, and from the methodology book, all the right steps, 5 steps, read many times, and then find the meaningful sentences and shorten them and so forth, and code and categorize. And that's what I did. But it's not enough. You should give an example of your, for example, if you're doing some content analysis and coding the data, then you could put the whole analysis in the appendices and give one example of how your coding and categorization looks, just to show that you actually did it. And if you can, if your theory actually guides your coding, because you may have your predetermined codes or themes from your theory, then you need to say that and put a reference in the brackets to the right theory that you have used. And then we are in the results. Read the report guide instructions. This is not something, the TAMC report guide is not something for you to study like a theory or to learn by heart, but every time you start something new in your report, for example, you have a table that you want to include, check in the report guide how it is done. I would recommend you to start following the instructions in the report guide from the beginning, because when you've done everything and you've finished your research and have had your results, then I at least feel very frustrated to start looking at these little details, like the table heading should be above the table and the figure should be below the figure, that sort of things. And then the results will show emerging themes, patterns, trends. Always explain your tables and figures in the preceding text. And then you have the table 3, and then the table 3 follows. And we didn't talk about direct quotations in connection with a theoretical frame of reference and the literature review, where you should avoid direct quotations. I know it's really easy to pick a good description and you feel like I can't say this any better than it's been said already, but you should avoid direct quotations in your in your theoretical framework and literature review, and try to paraphrase and just explain the results and how you are going to compare them in your own research. And the plain reason is that this is your report and it should be your text and not somebody else's. However, it's totally different when you are writing about your results and you have done your coding or thematic analysis or whatever way you've got your results. You should then, for example, you describe your results in tables and figures and charts, but then also take examples. If you interviewed people, take example, a representative extract from the data to show to the reader that it supports your interpretation. It supports your results. If you, for example, your result is that 95% hated pineapple on a pizza, then you could take an extract from an interview where the interviewee is saying that I just totally hate pineapple everywhere. So, but not everything they said. 1 or 2 representative examples from the raw data will be enough. The worst way of doing this is to tell the reader what you asked the interviewees and then what they answered. Like, I had 5 interviewees and these were the questions I asked, and these were the first question, and number 1 said this, and number 2 said this, and number 3 said this. This is not research. There's no analysis, there's no interpretation, just like parroting back what the interviewee said. It's what the journalists do. And you as a researcher should, I think it's fair to say that you shouldn't ask your research question from your interviewees and then provide that as an answer to your research question, because it should be your answer after your research and data collection and data analysis and interpretation. You can't ask it from somebody else. Any questions, Chris?
No, I was thinking about when you were talking about quotations, one thing I thought was good to kind of maybe underline, I don't know if this is obvious, but just that Tomk is really down on secondary sources. So always go to primary sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And also, if you have done some research yourself that you want to refer to, you need to treat yourself as any other author. Like you just refer to yourself with your name and list it in the list of references.
Yeah.
Okay, finally the discussion, the most important chapter in your thesis report, because if there's somebody who is interested in your topic, they might read your abstract first and then jump into your discussion chapter to find what your results were and what were their meaning and so forth. They will probably skip the analysis and tables and figures if they are not that interested in verifying your results, but want to know what you found out. So here is your place to answer your research questions and remind the reader what you set out to do, and then discuss your results, because in the results chapter you would have the tables, how many % answered what, and what kind of themes you found there. But this is where you will sort of reflect on your results, what your results mean for example, your school, if the school was a commissioner. And this is really important. If you haven't done it before, show the reader how your results relate to prior research and your theoretical framework. Just saying, for example, at Waite and Slate in their study found that this was a positive effect, but my results totally contradict theirs, or these results corroborate the theory and also these studies that I had discussed earlier. So, and always give the reference within the brackets and not just say that Kolb's theory is in work here, but just give it in the brackets, Kolb and the year as you've done before. And at this point, I can remind you that the reference doesn't carry from one paragraph to another, but you have to repeat the same reference again and again if you refer it. So it's not enough just to give the reference in the beginning of the chapter and then keep talking about the same thing without the reference. Also discuss the importance of your results. Here is the place to be critical of your work, but remember to end on a positive note. There were these challenges, but on the other hand, within these time constraints and whatever, you managed really well in your research. Don't downplay your own role, but be critical and realistic. And what are your recommendations? You can have different sub-chapters, these like discussion, conclusions, recommendations, or they can be sub-chapters in the discussion, or there could be a different main chapter about recommendations. That's not that important. Okay, I think this is all I wanted to say. This interview was my monologue.
Thank you very much, Sisko. This is great. I have one follow-up question for you because I don't want this to stretch on too long, because I think we could be here for a long time discussing these things. But if you can go back to the original structure slide.
And I wanted to show examples. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this isn't the only sort of model, so can you give us a little bit of a sort of a sense of how there might be variations in this?
Yeah. No, I can't do that, but I can just agree with you that as long as you have this content, then you can have different headings and you can have, for example, a heading theoretical framework and have the literature review inside it, as many do, and not even separately. But let me quickly show you a few examples that I found maybe one will be enough that if we are in a hurry.
Yeah, let's go for one.
Let's look at one where this one is, yes, this is Angelique. Very well, because this is the difficulty is in this part where you need to, I would like to have this bigger. Can you see anything?
If you press the green, yeah, there we go.
Here we go. So this is Angelique. Her technique was to, I already had sort of scrolled it down in the right position, but no, it wasn't there. Her method was to summarize each theory at the end of the discussion. She has many theories here in the theoretical framework, and whenever she had discussed it, she had a summary at the end of this, like summarizing the discussion previously. Here she has assessment theories, and again, there's a summary about what this is. I haven't seen this before, but this is very clever, and you can have your own way of summarizing. You don't have to summarize like this every theory, but at the end of the theoretical framework chapter, you should make the synthesis, and this is not often done. And I'll show how Angelique has made the synthesis, and it's actually new information because it wasn't straight from any theory. Lots of theories here. Here, conceptual framework. Angelique Bosque, when she was doing this is her table from all the theories that she had studied, conceptual framework for her research. And here she has given the reference to the authors that she referenced earlier when she was discussing their theories. This is very clear, and she comes back to this table when she is looking at her methodology and when she's looking at her analysis, highlighting the appropriate places there. Soraya had a different thing. I'll quickly show this one as well. She has her research was on conceptual curriculum based on concept-based curriculum, and she discusses other concepts and all kinds of things to do with that assessment, and also have some tables here. Tables are very clear, summarizing some points that you want the reader to remember. Here is a chapter for thematic areas emerging from the literature. This is her synthesis. She found 6 themes in the literature. And this is also new information because she didn't find these themes like pointed out in any theories, but reading the literature review and the theories and like other studies, she came up with these themes. But even so, she hadn't said it here, but when I was reading her report, the methodology chapter, she there wrote that these interview questions were based on the 6 themes found in the theoretical framework. And then I was, oh, wow, where did this come from? And then I asked her to please show them in the end of the theoretical framework chapter if she was using them. And then these 6 themes actually worked all through her work. Even in the results, she was discussing these themes. So this is a kind of logical, coherent work where it's tied together from the beginning to the end.
Fantastic, that's great.
I still want to say, Chris,
yes,
that we assess the 4 things that I showed in the assessment criteria, but your work doesn't have to be perfect. Now that you may think it has to be perfect after my talk, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can get 5 even if it's not perfect, because there are 4 categories that we assessed. You can get 4 on some of them and 5 on some of them, and then the average will be 5 or will be 4, whatever, but don't stress out too much.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you very much, Sisko, for this session. I'm going to also link to those two thesis works that you're mentioning
Yeah.
in the Moodle. And yes, thank you for this.
Thank you for having the pleasure of doing this. I will send you my notes as well, so you can put them anywhere you like.
Perfect. That's great. I'm going to stop the recording now.